It's a Miami Wednesday night here at the Voice of College Football. We do appreciate you being here. This is what we do on this particular channel is talk Canes on a Wednesday. Have been doing it for quite a long time, as evidenced by the show number 435 with Cam Underwood from the State of the U. That's your daily stop for Miami athletics coverage. Hey Cam, how you doing?
Doing well. Just kind of yawned, so that's why my eye looks like that. But I will be all right as we get going here on a Wednesday night. Be sure that you subscribe on your platform of choice, so that you can always be here with us as we get going. And I know that we have a couple of questions to talk about. I'm sure there's some other things that we can get to throughout the course of this evening. So yeah, ready to go.
This is your time, folks, to produce the show. So leave those comments and questions there in the chat. And Cam, you have mentioned a time or two that maybe you took a little cat nap sometime before the show. And then you just mentioned, kind of stretching things out, stretching out the cobwebs. I did unintentionally nod off for a nice 40 or 45 minutes before I jumped on here.
Very
one
nice.
Of those intentional, unintentional, like I knew that this is probably going to happen, but I'm not going to try to fight it.
Power nap, hey, we're, we all take them from time to time, but yeah. So as we get going, as always,
Big Falconer, TRX, very nice. Sources told me Carson Beck's NIL deal is $69 million.
Hashtag nice. Yeah, it's just people just pocket watching Miami all the time. I saw, it was like there was a report, and I don't know exactly, but it was somebody in the Rivals on 3 merger family, I believe, who reported, just trying to put number, they're always just, it's interesting how, the deal was known for Nico Iamaleava at Tennessee, that Darian Mensah at Duke, that number was out there when he committed. But who are you still talking about? You know what I mean? Carson Beck's been here for months. We've already heard this is the 4th or 5th number, because it was 4, and then it was over 4, and then it was near 4, and then the total, and now it's 6 with some incentives and everything that it all, with performance incentives, it could get up to 6, and then blah, blah, blah. Now, the one thing I will say, I was, talking with a friend of mine and said, okay, cool. Let's assume, let's pretend that this number is somewhere around. And I'm going to bring up Falconer's next super chat, because it says, but the hashtag 69 million, Beck must also maintain the turf, because that's a performance incentive. And we all know that, Falconer has a green thumb, and he loves to talk about the grass and everything. Let's live in a world where 6 million, including incentives or performance-based incentives, is the number. Let's pretend. To me, performance incentives means winning, right? And yes, hitting statistical markers, but also if Carson Beck hits the statistical level that he had in 2023, I would reasonably expect Miami to be a very, very high-end team in the world of college football, in terms of winning games on the field, right? So again, in the hypothetical situation presented with the number that was presented, $6 million. If the on-field performance for Carson Beck is something near what he did in 2023, let's call it 3850 yards passing, more than 30 touchdowns passing, fewer than 10 interceptions, add in a couple hundred yards rushing and maybe a couple touchdowns, 10 regular season wins, ACC championship game, and at least the semifinals of the college football playoff. It's a deal at twice the price. If for $6 million you get all of that, right? So 3-1 non-conference, pick your loss. 7-1 in conference, pick your loss. That gets you to Charlotte. Likely win in this scenario, because we're talking, again, performance incentives, right? So you get there, you get a bonus incentive. You win that, you get a bonus incentive. You get a bye in the first round, win the quarterfinal, make it to the semis with whatever result, even if it's a loss in the semifinals, a game away from the national championship game. If you're telling me today that we're giving Carson Beck $6 million for what I've just described, sign me up. That's my thought. And again, I know that I'm walking down the world of a hypothetical. As I presented it, Mark, what would be your thought on, I mean, I know you're not a Miami fan, but if I were to present that to you and say, for Miami, $6 million, the statistical markers that we said, 7-1 in conference, 3-1 non-conference, 10-2, go to Charlotte, likely win it again to get to the $6 million. So 11-2 bye, win the quarterfinal, make it to the semis, and even in this case, let's say lose the semis. Is that a good trade? Is that a valuable return on investment to your outside eye? Because to me, in the hypothetical that I've been working through in my head, based upon what was said a couple days ago, I take that all day.
You've had my brain going in about 6 different directions during all of that. One would be this, that first of all, it's not my money. So heck yeah, I'm a fan of this team. Yeah, let's dig in and let's throw it at this dude and let's go.
Well, even as an impartial arbiter, right? If you're thinking, in the state of college football, like $6 million for a player, this is the team, this is the program that has not and then this program is doing this and then getting that back. Even if you're not a fan, that has to be a reasonable, if not good, return on investment. I'm not saying that getting to the semifinals is in and of itself, for everybody listening, is like the terminal ceiling for this team. But I'm like, if you're signing up for that now on July 16th, you got to take that.
Okay, let me throw in a few other possible implications. One would be, does this $6 million take away from other efforts in NIL?
No.
Okay, this is just a clear, okay, this is reserved for Carson Beck, boom. And this does not impact us in any way obtaining other players or
right.
Maintaining this roster for the next season.
Everybody else has already been paid. We're already recruiting at the level, but all they're doing now is saying, okay, we already know that you're paying Carson a nebulous number. They're just putting specificity to the number. It doesn't do anything but allow people to talk about Miami's finances and pocket watch. So it doesn't change any other scenario, no.
My other consideration, which really doesn't have to do with money, but it has to do with expectation, would be Miami's they're in a unique situation. They're Texas of 4 or 5 years ago. They're fill in the blank, where there is expectation that is rooted in tradition and doing it in the past, but also rooted in recent failures, shortcomings. So this isn't Georgia, Ohio State, et cetera, that if you say, okay, we're not going to pay this $6 million to fill in the blank player. And you're not going to accomplish what you're typically just expected kind of to do, but you can move on the next year and nobody's going to completely go run off a bridge. Although, at Georgia, Ohio State, that kind of place that's been rooted in contending seriously for national championships, they'll just come back the next year. But then you're not Wake Forest or whomever that, this would be a pipe dream that would never happen. And so heck yeah, throw the $6 million. There's elite status from yesteryear, and there's also expectation because the way the program's currently being built and financed, and the coach that you ran after, that Miami should be doing this. So of course, yes, $6 million. The winning is everything. Winning is everything.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, and I mean that was just my thought on it. Again, there's another conversation to be had about why everybody always is pocket watching Miami you know, and like they even like Texas Tech paying for Felix Ojo, right? And who was he's a 5-star offensive tackle, long time. It was pretty much set it and forget it. He's going to Texas. He's from Texas, been to Texas a billion times, like UT, I was gonna say fight on, but that's not them. But Texas Longhorns. And then like they're like, cool, like we got oil money out here in Lubbock too, boy. You know what I mean? So yeah, that doesn't move the needle. Like the Carson, like people continue just to bring Miami, just to have Miami's name in their mouth. And this is what I'm talking about and have been talking about Miami being a impactful team, like being a brand. No, we haven't had the on-field success that we would have liked, obviously since forever, but we still move the needle. Otherwise, why are people talking about this? But yeah, it's just interesting. But I mean, yeah, like in the hypothetical world of hypothetical worlds, so building on the hypothetical of the number and everything, it would reasonably make sense. Yeah, if you're talking about just the kind of scenario for performance that I brought forward. But I mean, if we hit those numbers, it's worth it.
So there's another factor at play possibly, and it's not a apples to apples comparison, but I think to the typical fan, they can stretch it to become one. There are some comparisons to be made. The Texas of the last 15 years, again, before a couple of years ago when they appear to be back and well running and back to an elite program. Miami of the last 20 or 25 years. I think people like to make fun of the New York Yankees. If they're not winning championships, if they're failing and they're throwing the highest payroll out there, or the New York Mets are probably a better example of really just, hey, this mediocre team time and time again and throwing all this money at it, that hits somewhere with the average sports fan that why can't they get it right? They have the resources, but they can't get it right. This is kind of comical.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it makes sense. I mean, but that's, we have trash talk for a reason. I mean, obviously we're going to, be on the other side. And I mean, like, I know, like everybody knows Miami's not been where we want to be, but we got to find a way forward.
Here's what I don't like about incentives in football. There's only one sport that I basically have no issue with incentive clauses, and that's baseball. Because it doesn't seem to, because the way the sport is played, impact team performance. Everybody individually walks up to the plate. You're only helping your team if you're hitting home runs, knocking in runs, getting base hits. There could be a slight situation, especially in yesteryear when bunting was more a part of the game where, hey, we need you to lay down a bunt to help the team. No, I got this, this performance clause. I want 100 RBIs or whatever. So it's possible. But that's the most individualistic team sport, as opposed to getting into some funky football scenarios or basketball scenarios where, we need to take some air out of the ball. No, we don't. I got to throw 30 touchdowns or I got to score 30 points a game or whatever the case might be in those two sports. So I'm not crazy about incentive bonuses. I understand them. And I think 90% of the time you are accurately rewarding positive play that also helps the team.
Yeah. Fair.
All right.
Hey, Leroy. Appreciate it. Good to see you. Mr. HD. We're getting some Maureen Wingo tomorrow. Gator Lock. Yeah. Some Maureen Wingo from St. Augustine, I believe, something like that. 4-star receiver who is making his announcement tomorrow afternoon. 4-star blue chipper, Miami, Florida, and South Carolina are the teams that he took official visits to. 6'2", 180-pound player. This is a guy who'd been on campus to Miami several times. Plays basketball. Pretty good basketball player from his 247 Sports page. 17.6 boards, 3 steals and 2.5 assists in this current season, or last year as a junior for Bartram Trail. Also runs track, 53 seconds in the 400 and everything. We'll see, which way he's leaning. We are in the dog days of summer of recruiting for Miami, and to the next statement from Leroy the Black Ninja Turtle, do we feel a little worried no big recruit has been added to the class in a while? Yeah, it's been a lot of whiffs, to be perfectly honest. I haven't commented on them a lot because I heard people who consume my content writ large, who feel that I just sit here and cry about things all the time when I am critical, and said, okay, I'm going to step back from that. I hear you. If you think that, okay, my opinion is always negative, or like, it is grading on and just focusing on the negative. And again, I admit I could have handled it differently when Brody Jennings flipped from Michigan to Miami. That was me lashing out at my displeasure overall with the recent run of misses and taking it out on an individual player by focusing not on him joining the class and being a blue chip player and all these kind of things, but focusing on the misses. So I'm a grown man. I can admit that, yeah, I could have handled that differently. Fine. Dude, it's becoming a pattern that at this, starting pretty strong or very strong and, in a recruiting cycle, and then hitting the end of June, going into July, and then just, oof, buddy, it's rough, and like, if I were just to, again, if I go to official visits and just so that I can bring them all to the front of my mind of players so since Ashari Charles being a four-star, now you focus on other players. Jason Lopez is a player, who a lot of people have talked up locally, who I think can play here, but you basically say, we don't have a spot for you. He goes to FSU. Nolan Wilson from Mississippi, you are in the battle, if not leading, for a good long time. He ends up committing to Alabama instead. Obviously Calvin Russell going to Syracuse, Jay Lamar going to Georgia, but that is kind of part of the whole scenario because you need 2 running backs in this class. You figure he's about equal to Javian Mallory from West Boca. Mallory, who had visited Alabama, decides, okay, looks like he's going to stay in this class. You let Lamar go because all the eggs are in the Derek Cooper bucket, and he is making his announcement on Sunday to a team. And recently, going back to the prior conversation, everything is pointing to Texas making a huge charge. And then, maybe Georgia circling back and, actually being the one who gets 2 of the 3 of Mallory, Lamar, and Cooper. Miami not being at the forefront of what the scenario looks like presently. Blake Stewart, who you're all in on from Georgia, the safety, says thanks, but no thanks. I'm going to Clemson. That was last week. Also, who was it? Bryce Perry-Wright, Texas A&M. James Johnson, Texas. Tyreek Green, another safety from the Atlanta area from Buford, goes to Georgia. But you're like, cool, we're all in on Blake Stewart, who's going to Clemson. Like, Devin Jackson, the safety from Orlando. Okay, he was committed to Zach Etheridge at Florida. Zach Etheridge works at Miami now. We are in a great situation. We're pushing there to watch him fly away and be a Duck at Oregon. Like Braden Robinson, the fast, shifty slot receiver, may or may not have told him, that you had a spot for him or not. But either way, Miami was a finalist, and he's going to Notre Dame. Like Lamar Brown, top 5 player in America, goes to school on LSU's campus. I say I'll believe it when I see it, and we're not going to see it because he, like most players from Louisiana, said, cool, throw up the L, I'm going to Tiger Stadium, and, talks about basically putting on for the crib, in other words, because players from Louisiana do that, players from Miami don't. Tristan Keys, committed to LSU, might be looking at flipping, but that's going to be a season-long thing. But at present, that's a L. Chauncey Kennan from Sarasota Booker, 5-star player, just committed to Florida State. Samari Matthews, a cornerback that Miami was after since forever, was committed previously to Clemson, in a good spot like it seemed like for a while. He's going to Texas. Messiah Hampton, the wide receiver. Now, I know he was further down on our board and everything, but this is a 4-star All-American kind of player. He's flying away and going to Oregon. Keyshawn Stansel from North Carolina, a big defensive tackle. He's going to Clemson. Zach Turner. Now, we, obviously got a different tight end in the class, but this is a guy that we put a lot of resources into from the Dallas area, and he stays home to go to SMU. Daniel Norman, an edge rusher from St. Thomas Aquinas that Miami was looking at as a high 3-star, borderline developing into a 4-star edge rusher. Local kid, should be kind of under the radar. Miami was on him a little bit first, started pushing a little bit, and then started back. Okay, cool. He's going to Oklahoma. All I'm saying is the evidence of whiffitude through this summer of blue chip guys is, it's piled high. You know what I mean? Like, everywhere you look and everywhere like that we've talked about and seen, heard, and read about. Okay, and I say it because I watch people's content, I read other people's stuff, and I do talk to some people, although not as many in the recruiting world as before. That's why I always say that I have seen, heard, or read. That's why I say that, in case anybody was wondering. Okay. But the blue chip players that have elected not to go to Miami recently, it's a who's who, right? So now you're talking about Samori Wingo, right? Derek Cooper on Sunday. This is a kid that, again, I have always pushed back on the notion of like a must-get recruit in a vacuum, but you've positioned yourself that you need this player. Now, can you move forward with others? Miami had to, because we whiffed on other guys in other years. I'm not going to say any names. You know who I'm thinking of, but I'm not going to say it, right? But, I don't know why this part of the year, and I know, I just saw, Alex Mirabal, the offensive line coach, he was on vacation somewhere. I know that, this last stretch before fall camp opens in a couple of weeks is, where you get a little bit of relaxation for the coach. You're in a dead period. You can take some vacations, check in with your wife and kids. Say, hey, I know we're going to go to, St. Lucia. It's right there from Miami. It's just off the northern coast of South America. In case you're wondering of a great vacation location, look into it. It's beautiful. But, you do that, but this is not me opining right now. This is me just laying it bare. It's been Whiff City. So it is problematic. Deal with that as you see fit. I would welcome Samori and Wingo into this recruiting class. I do not believe at this point, if at the time of their commitment, you were to say, we want or would have taken Braden Robinson and Jason Lopez, but we would have preferred, and we're kind of setting it up to have room for, another player or two at the wide receiver position. So we kind of we're in, but we're not all in. You know what I mean? Like, you're going on dates to the bar, but you're also head on the swivel and looking at the bar. I could see that. I don't necessarily agree with it. And I don't think that's what happened. But if someone were to say that, I would understand it. At this point, who are you waiting for that you would be slow playing Samori and Wingo? At this point, it's been all in on Derek Cooper, whose announcement is on Sunday, I mean, you haven't been waiting for anyone but him. You know what I mean? By getting a Jay Lamar on campus, by getting these other dudes on campus who have committed elsewhere from other places at the running back position, by pushing for Javian Mallory and then being like, hey, boss, we need you to figure it out because we need two in this class. We need Derek Cooper and either you or the guy standing next to you. You already said seats taken. Is it taken or is it ain't? Because if it ain't taken, then we're going to go talk to Jay Lamar real heavy. Jaden Mallory says, cool, smooth. So you've set everything up to save room for this kid. It's challenging and straining credulity a little bit of like why. And I think, earlier, and like this is a thing that like myself and other content creators, in the Kane space disagreed, because I thought there should have been an uptick in recruiting last year towards signing day, which did not happen. And I was very critical of, and y'all know that. And I know many others said, well, it's going to be really paid off in 26, the Cam Ward success. So I don't see it, but if it changes, then I will eat humble pie. It seemed, and I had a slice of humble pie earlier, especially when Jackson Cantwell committed, number one player in America, boom, da, da. All right. But like whiff after whiff after whiff, especially at defensive line, in the secondary, like at safety, I don't know who our safety class is going to be now, right? Because you're talking about, oh, well, Devin Jackson, you pretty much have him penciled in. Nah, Blake Stewart, you have those two as your probable penciled in pair. No and no. I don't know. And, I'm trying to take the long-term view, the 30,000-foot view, but I mean, and I know that Miami's paying, as Miami should, because that's that's the landscape of the sport now, right? So we know that Miami's paying. And we've seen guys go other places and then started hearing, well, we know that it's not on the back end, because everybody's, watching Miami's pockets. Everybody talking about, well, it's not because of Miami's lack of offer, of a competitive offer. It's not because they were outbid. Specifically, Calvin Russell going to Syracuse. I saw multiple people talking about the reason that he went to Syracuse did not come down to the fact that Syracuse offered him more money. So now we can't get people to take our money, apparently. Worried isn't the word, but I have concerns. And while early on in this recruiting class, it seemed as though the staff was moving and operating in a way to quell those concerns and move in a positive direction, all that momentum, all those positive moves have long since stopped. And it will be a very, very, very tough scenario and situation come this time next week if Derek Cooper is committed somewhere else, as has Samorian Wingo. And then you're talking about Anthony Kennedy Jr. from Little Rock, Arkansas, who committed a couple weeks ago, being the only commit of note. I mean, well, Israel Briggs, June 24th. Ashari Charles 2 days before that. So it was Israel Briggs on the 24th, Vance Spafford on the 23rd, flip from Georgia. Ashari Charles the day before that, cool. And then Anthony Kennedy on the 27th. And I mean, yeah, Brody Jennings on, the 5th of July, but like, and Tyron Evans, cool. But the misses are piling up in a troubling way for me, especially at key positions of need. And I know I said, and I have maintained for years, that offensive line would be a major focus in this class. And I do believe that this offensive line group is the best in the country as presently committed. ain't enough boss. And a thing that I've said, and I believe it operates differently than James Coleman, who was with us last week. If the standard is the standard, right? Even with the additions, I at present do not believe that the standard is being met in terms of recruiting. And to the comment says too early to worry, 9818, I'll wait till December to be worried about recruiting again. I'm not worried, but there are obvious concerns due to missing on so very many players, specifically on the defensive line and in the defensive secondary at safety in the last 6 weeks. I prefer to have Irvin, Colajay, Kept Cooper, Johnson for Cat. I mean, yeah, you can make up a list of players that, you know, hypothetically, like, I mean, if we're playing the college football trade machine, like, yeah, I mean, if you're talking about 2 5-stars and 2 4-stars for the number 1 player in America, even at the position that he plays, remembering, you know, Joel Irvin is a monster and just got upgraded to a high 4-star commit on 247, and then that obviously boosted his composite rankings and everything. And then you also have Ben Congdon from Ohio at tackle. So, I mean, you have 3 legit tackles in this class. I mean, you could see a path forward. I mean, if you're getting, you know, because of the list, Brett Colajay is a 6'5", 6'6" offensive guard who's an All-American. Cool. Cooper's a 5-star. Johnson's a 5-star. Irvin, I don't even know which player you mean by this, but I would assume. But that's also kind of a work of the fiction of your mind. I don't necessarily know that that's a real, like, proposed trade. But I get what you're saying. You know, we're speaking in the world of hypotheticals. Only 1 top 100 recruit in this class. And I don't know what your or like which list you're looking at. I don't necessarily agree with that to be true. And even if it is true at this point, I don't believe that will be true in the end, because there are several players who I still believe should be ranked a little bit higher in this group. But if we didn't miss on all the guys we've missed on recently, that number will be different. So, I mean, we're kind of supporting the same point there. But as of now, yeah, exactly. Cantwell and Briggs in the top 100 per the 247 list. But still, yeah. So, again, not worried. The recent run of L's on the trail is a bit concerning.
Well stated. That was quite the dissertation right there. And because what was it, maybe 4 to 6 weeks ago, it was maybe the number 3 class. Did it get that high? Something in that range?
No, I wasn't all the way up to 3, but it was definitely up there. Give me 2 seconds.
Folks, we appreciate you being here at the Voice of College Football. This is the Hurricane Show. We go live with Miami football talk with all of you each and every Wednesday with Cam. We've done it forever, and we will continue to. So we appreciate your contributions. Falconer TRX, did I catch all of these? They all had 69s and Beck in them. Let's see. Falconer TRX, stick with JUCO transfers, better than high school seniors.
Niet, no thank you. I'll take transfer portal players, but you know, we know that the foundation of a championship roster is built through high school recruiting and augmented through the portal, which you should be doing in real life and also in college football 26, as I'm learning. So yeah. And I don't know if we got this one from Falconer earlier. Miami is not even top 10 in NIL spending. I don't know that there's that, but yeah. How can Beck be trash and worth $6 million? You know, I I've said before, and I mean, I get that this is, like a lot of the things you're saying, tongue in cheek. I'm not a person. I think that the conversation about Carson Beck swung way too far to the trash part of the pendulum. And then, so people who have said that now are then going on the 6 million. So like there is that disconnect. I think that he's better than people are giving credit for. I think, it's definitely gotten to the, not, he's on the underrated side for what he has shown in performance on the field and worth 6 million. But I mean, hey, again, if Miami were to reach the performance levels that I said earlier, the 6 million would be worth it.
Let me throw out a theory. I'm not saying it's well thought out, founded, or even that I believe it. It's just something that popped into my head, where in the past, before this current era of college football with paying the players above board, there would have to be major shifts in coaching staff, personnel, perception of that program, those sorts of things to move somebody up or down the pantheon of recruiting powers. Is it possibly that it's as fluid as Texas Tech is 40th or 50th on the list, but they get some just surge of cash, and that there are more of those out there than maybe we anticipated?
I mean, they're splashing the cash. I mean, like I don't know the young lady's name, but like, they got the best pitcher in the world of college softball from Stanford. They bought her off of a Stanford degree. Stanford softball, which is a legendary program, like it, along with like volleyball and things like that. Like, they are a very, competitive team in, football and basketball. I mean, they can compete some, but like in the like the Olympic sports. And I've said that, I don't know if I've said it on here, but like if I had it to do all over again, like Stanford would have been my dream school. And I fell short of the academic markers for that because I wasn't really pushing for that. I'm fairly confident that I would have been a competitive candidate for there if I would have really, really, really dug. Like Stanford, a Stanford degree, and they got her to go to Lubbock, Texas. Like, come on, brother. Like, I know, like, and again, I know that all, college degrees are valuable, and congratulations to everybody who's, fought the good fight of faith to make it through, because there are dark days for all of us who were there and, had 3 concerts, and well, I had 5 papers, 2 projects, 3 concerts, 2 friends recitals, and my solo lessons, juries, which you go in the School of Music for your principal instrument, whatever it is, you literally stand or sit, depending on the instrument, in front of a jury panel of teachers and perform, and they sit there and they judge you solo, right? So, but I had all of that due in the first 3 days of finals, one semester. Tough and challenging. But yeah, they got her up off of that, bro. Like, it is, yeah. So I don't know, but like they are clearly spending the cash. And then to the Felix Ojo point, nobody wants to talk about 3 years, 5 and some change guaranteed. And, we are all talking about the guaranteed contracts in the world of football, especially with the NFL collusion stuff, which is crazy if you haven't looked into it. I urge you to go watch all of the episodes of Pablo Torre Finds Out. Not a sponsor, could be, because, buddy, it is deeper than you think it is. And the union leadership, there was a guy who tried to pull a coup and install himself as lifelong leader, and him and his homeboy that he brought over, who at the place that he used to work at is paying one of the largest federal fines ever, and he was CFO. So there are financial misdoings where he used to be. They're paying one of the largest financial fines ever. The player and this homeboy colluded with and they said, cool, the ruling from this and all the information, we're going to keep it here and not share it with the player base, like the actual union membership. It is wild. It's so much more than you think. It's crazy. But my point is, you're not talking about that, but it has been multiply reported. Now, I will say it was reported and put out there by the agent and everything. So it's not only that people are only talking about Miami, but we're talking about Carson Beck, who came here in December, in the middle of July, when Felix Ojo got this $5.1 million or whatever guaranteed last week or 2 weeks ago, and ain't nobody talking about it anymore. But going way back, Studio One Live, I'll take that bargain again with the potential or purported $6 million for Carson Beck. I'll take that bargain if the alternative is Emory Williams 8-4, 9-3, and missed the playoffs. From what I saw, let me find it. Let me find it. What about Emory Williams' performance that we've ever seen points towards 8-4 even? I don't see it. So I would respectfully submit this 8-4, 9-3 with Emory Williams is super duper speculative, way over what we saw. Because even if it were this, I'm not necessarily. If we were that confident in Emory, which is basically 8, maybe 9, and if things break right, 10, you talk yourself into that and you figure out a way with defense to bridge that gap and get that win and a half to get 9 going 10. I believe that this is a little bit over what we saw from him. If you go back and watch that bowl game when he was playing a real live defense in Iowa State, yeah, I do not. I don't think that I think that's way, way, way more successful and alternative than it would have actually been. Something that I did see another content creator put out there that I'm going to weigh in on. I believe that, yeah, the question was, is this a make or break season for Miami? When has it not been? Like, Miami's been more talented than everybody that they play, save maybe 1 or 2 teams a year, right? When Florida State is halfway decent, you get a Notre Dame in there, you get a Clemson every couple, you get the, Texas A&M home and home, Florida's not terrible. I mean, they have athletes on that roster, but I mean, like, more often than not, 10 or 11 games in the year, the better athletes are wearing orange, green, and white. You know what I mean? Like, the more talented team, you still find ways to lose the game. And then, is this season a make or break? I mean, if we don't make it to the playoff, would the outlook for next year be markedly different? As in, if we don't make it this year, would next year's outlook suffer greatly in a negative direction? It was. I mean, like, maybe I'm crazy. Maybe I need to go back in the archives of Miami Hurricanes Live and look at the shows from last summer, Mark, and correct me if I'm wrong, or go back on stateofview.com. Wonderful website, free, right there. I wrote a bunch of great stuff. We had even roundtables about it before last year. I'll go pull those up. I swore that last year was the make or break. Was it not? Was that not what was being positioned by Miami getting Cam Ward? Did I not say from my own mouth into this very microphone, if not now, then when? Especially because last year's schedule was Charmin soft, and now the focus in this year is going to be the fact that Miami has 8 home games and only 4 road games. Last year, we didn't have really any competition on the schedule. There was Louisville. That was really it. But you mess around, you throw a couple interceptions against Virginia Tech early. Well, no, you had the fumble on the strip sack, right? On one drive early, and then the low red zone post wheel to Restrepo, where that defender made a great play and baited Cam Ward, right? So that game was closer than it should have been. We all know that it was just scattershot bullshit for 2.5 quarters at Cal until Cam Ward finally decided to lock the fuck in, and then we go do that. But last year's schedule was supposed to be Charmin soft. Whoop, we rolled through that, get to Charlotte, get to the playoff, and profit. Was that not the scenario? Am I misremembering, Mark?
That's how it was laid out, and I certainly was one to believe that it was more than possible.
I mean, to be perfectly honest, it should have happened. But you go to Georgia Tech, they win every single, they win the game, but Miami dominated that game, with the exception of 3rd and 4th downs, where Georgia Tech won every single 3rd and 4th down all game long. That early drive where you go for it on 4th and 2 inside the Georgia Tech 25, Miami makes that every other game, right? Every other game. But Georgia Tech won every 3rd and 4th down. Bang, there goes your undefeated season. Fine. And I get there was a strip sack at the end because Cam Ward he didn't want to take the check down. He was trying to hold the ball late. Jacoby George, he held the ball for 8 seconds and finally gets sacked because Romello Height, former Miami commit, ran all around the world twice to finally get there. But Jacoby George came open at the end. That's where that ball was going to go, right? Now, if he would have had 9 seconds to throw it instead of only 8.8 seconds to throw it, maybe Miami escapes. Cool. You're up 21-0 on the road to Syracuse. I don't want to hear anything. But that was supposed to be the year. It was all set up. And you had a non-conference schedule, which was much more manageable than a Florida team this year that you would expect to be improved from last year. That Miami obviously went up there into, Gainesville, shut them down, blew them fuck out, and sent people home in the 3rd quarter. Cool. It stands to reason that this year's iteration would be better. Notre Dame is light years better than Ball State, right? And I know that there are 8 home games, but is this a make or break year? When have we not had a make or break year? When have we not recently? Especially under Mario, in these last, run. Now I get that his first year, you're rebuilding it and tearing it down, but last year was supposed to be the year. It didn't happen. This year, reasonably, could or should be the year in a similar kind of way. But if it doesn't happen, the sun will come up tomorrow. I'll still be a Miami, Hurricane. I'll still come on here and everything and talk about this. But I feel like we're trying to chase the moonlight here. And I love it, that we want to get there, but this, this is the season that it has to happen. So it can't be that. And then also, well, Cam, you're being a little bit too harsh about last year because, Miami didn't get there. It was the path was much clearer last year than this, which has a marginally tougher, road to traverse. But I get that there's 8 home games. Every year is a year. Miami Hurricanes we should not be referencing 2002 for the last time that top level performance was seen. You just shouldn't. And there's just time after time after time. 2017, you're on that path. You fumble that bag at Pittsburgh. You didn't recruit hard through the end of the season through November and this is confirmed by everybody who was there. And I said it at the time, Mark Richt Company said, we are going to not slow play, but we're going to focus on field and getting to the 4-team championship bracket, right? And then that'll be our proof positive to go seal these elite 4- and 5-star players who they themselves at the end of their college careers or now into their NFL careers to a man. And there's a lot of them said, I wanted to go to Miami. I wanted to be there. I was dialed in. They were recruiting me. I was listening and everything. And I wanted to come down there for a visit or I want to do whatever. They said, hey, we're going to hit you back later. You lose that game. Boom, you get blown out in Charlotte, especially, Jeff Thomas on a double move on the first drive. You don't throw it. And I don't necessarily think that we'd have won the game, but it would have been more competitive than what you saw. That fell apart. All right, so then you think 2018. Well, we were so close then. This has to be the year, right? 2018 is coming up on a decade ago. Every season, there's something to point at. And I get it. We want Miami to win. I do. I'm a Miami alum. I'm a Miami fan like y'all. I get it. But this continual pushing of like, oh well, this has to be the year. It's rinse and repeat. And I get that people recycle content. I copy and paste some things, and I recycle content streams. Hey, the early summer preview, position previews, some of those are up on StateOfTheU.com. The game previews for this season, obviously we look at it in the prism of every season, but like, yeah, this year having to be the make or break or whatever, I think it's overstated. And the other thing for me is if we looked at 2022, Manny Diaz's last year, as 21, excuse me. If you're saying that's a make or break year because we're going to fire you and go get somebody else, that makes sense. You ain't firing Mario, and I don't think you should either. So like, where's the make or break? Where's the it has to be? I mean, last year was a great scenario set up for Miami to be successful. This year, different, but also the same. But like, yeah, I don't know, man. I don't know. And maybe it just comes down to the way that I view things, and that is different from some other people. But I mean, it's just how many years are the need to be the year? Because if we're talking about that, last year was that year or one of those years. And then if last year was one of those years, which I and pretty much everybody said that it was, how on God's green earth are people accepting of the failure at Syracuse? Not, I mean, either. Obviously, Georgia Tech was a tough loss. You can really point to the fact that they won the money down, but see, you're up 21-0. You're up 21-0. And you lose 42-17 from them in 3 quarters of football, because it was 21-0 early in the second quarter. I mean, if this was a make or break season, how are you not calling for Mario's job then? If like, what's the other side of the scenario? So I mean, like, does Miami need to find a breakthrough year? Yes. And this is like what I talked about with the Notre Dame guy, Brian, right?
Yes. When
he was on, say, oh well, yeah, if you lose, 2 ACC games and one of them's in November, or one, I said, you gotta navigate a season. Even if we lose another November game, you're right back here talking about Syracuse again. You're right back here talking about Pittsburgh at the end of the season, multiple years. You're right back here talking about the fact that this team finds a way to lose games that they shouldn't, even with the talent and performance advantage throughout the rest of the season. It's just, I want Miami to win. I think that everything is set up for Miami to win. I just think positioning it as a necessity in this season as such, without there being consequences and repercussions for failure to achieve, is a fool's errand.
When I hear the term make or break, I think of 3 scenarios. One would be, you are a program that rarely competes, rarely has, and overall does not have the resources and the structure to compete at a high level. Purdue, Wake Forest, et cetera, et cetera. But you have lightning in a bottle for that year. You've collected a group of players, you have a schedule, you just have things, and you have to hit it that year, because then it's not coming around for 5 years, 10 years, who knows when. So there's one.
And to your point, from both of those schools, we've seen that year. Obviously, the God rest his soul, the Tyler kid from Purdue.
Sure.
the super fan who
Yes.
had terminal cancer, and then what was it, Riley at Wake Forest, the quarterback.
Oh, yeah. Well, are you thinking about Wake Forest going to the conference championship game with Sam Hartman?
I wasn't, but fine. There, Riley Skinner, who wrote all those records.
Yeah.
But yeah, even Sam Hartman. But so we've seen in the past 10 years, the one season from those teams, nary to be seen again. Miami's not in that kind of position. But I'm sorry, I interrupted.
No, they're not. No. I am not putting Miami in that class. I'm just saying
No.
there's a category of school that can't consistently win.
Right. And we agree that obviously, those are a tier below Miami. That's all I'm saying.
Absolutely. And then for me, there's another category of team where they're loaded. They've loaded up for that year. And even though they should be competitive all the time, this team just really needs to, because they've put it all together. They've retained a roster plus added to it. They need to knock down the door and get it done. And then there's a third category that involves the coach, as you mentioned. This coach received big money, big expectations, and there's been, let's say, 4 or 5, we won't even say failing shortcomings, and it's just time to say, hey, he needs to pull through this year or we need to move on. Those are kind of the 3 that I came up with in regards to what I would consider a make or break type situation.
Yeah.
Because you could say that about every team every year. It's a make or break.
Right. Pretty much. But I mean, like, again, but to my, point that I spoke about at length, Miami was it gift wrapped last year. Yeah. Absolutely gift wrapped. I mean, crazy the way that the schedule broke, lined up. You play Louisville, and that's pretty much it. Like, there was no Clemson, there was no SMU. It just, and you fumbled that bag, and it's like, oh well, yeah, it should be. I mean, yeah, Miami's built a program and a iteration of, and the team representing that program this year that could and should perform and succeed. But yeah, I don't necessarily see that, and maybe it's semantics, but we live in a world of words.
I don't remember what the conversation was exactly, but I remember myself making a comment, and this was about 5 weeks out from that Syracuse game, that could be the team, that could be the structured team that has a dynamic that on the right day, on the average day, they put up points and yards, but Miami wins 42-28. That's kind of like the average, the aggregate over 100 times. Miami's going to beat them by 2 touchdowns because they're just more talented. But Syracuse is going to score and do what they do, and that's throw the ball all over the world last year. But obviously in the right situation, that was the scary one. That was they got a few receivers and that quarterback on the right day, and that's what played out.
But again, up 21-0 in the second quarter, like a literal, video game pass the sticks moment, right? You got to find a way to shepherd that to conclusion. You got to, you got to land that plane. You know what I mean? And I mean, and it wasn't even like, now, I mean, there was a turnover, but it wasn't even like, Cal turnover, just back to back, like multiple. And that'll, like, you just, yeah. Anyways, so.
And then the other thing that comes to mind at the outset of your dissertation was the lineup of the typical Miami season and the talent comparison against the schedule and where that stands, that I completely agree with. So At worst, it's about a 9-3 break even. If every time you walk on the field, you beat the team that you are more talented than every time, let's say over the course of 10 or 15 years, every game Miami plays, they beat every team that has an inferior roster. They lose to every team that has a superior roster. And then let's say they split. So the coaching is negated. It's just marginal, decent coaching. Obviously, you look at the records and you stack that up against what should be 9-3, 10-2 all the time, pretty much. Obviously, every team's a little bit different, but generally 9-3, 10-2, there's obviously been a deficiency in coaching.
Yeah. Yeah. And look, again, sometimes you get bad breaks and, there's player performance and luck and everything involved also. But I mean, yeah, so it should, I mean, I've seen the early line was over under 9.5. I saw Circus Sports recently came out right at 9 over under for Miami in the regular season. So a push is possible on that. But I mean, again, it needs to be 10 and going to Charlotte. Going to Charlotte, not 10 and sitting home like last year. Falconer TRX, Jim Toretta on Gruden podcast was very good. Okay. I did see a clip when Toretta was talking about his top 5 canes all the time, but I don't really. I'm not the target demographic for the outlet that John Gruden works for. And so I usually do not partake of their content. But I did see that clip from Gino. Any season. Sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to say, if you're alluding to what I think you're alluding to, yes. Yeah, I won't say anything else.
Any season Miami doesn't win a natty is a break, Falconer. Yeah, I mean, but it's been forever. It's been a good long time. And teams that could compete, not saying all of them that would have won, but teams that were, that could reasonably compete, continue to find ways to lose games to teams they shouldn't. And if that's the point of conversation, like Miami needs to hold serve on all of the games and then win some of the big ones, right? As well, and not drop any of the stupid ones, right? So it's kind of a 3-part. Win the games you're supposed to win. Don't lose the games you're supposed to win. I know it sounds the same. Those are different things. And you as a Miami fan know exactly what I'm talking about. So win the games you're supposed to win. Don't lose the games you're supposed to win. And then win the other games that are toss-up or underdog games. Large, in general. Then you're looking at probably 10 or 11 wins in the regular season. I think this team is talented enough for that. I know last year's team was, but the defense was deficient. And then injury on top of injury on top of injury on top of injury last year. I mean, Damari Brown, Jadis Richard, the secondary was paper thin, and then that paper got ripped to shreds. So then, we're playing guys like who shouldn't really. And I mean, we saw. But you're still even trying to find a way past that. I saw a lot of people asking, am I saying that Mario is not a good recruiter? I didn't say that. I just said that there has been consistent performance from the staff that he oversees and directs that has had some trouble in the month of July. Take that as you will, but I did not say that he's a bad recruiter. I believe he's one of, if not, he's one of the best head coach recruiters around. George asked an interesting question. Who would I take this year at quarterback, DJ Lagway or Carson Beck? I think that there's a reasonable argument for either. If you were looking in a vacuum, I could see why you would want either, in a vacuum as in for this year. I could see there's a reasonable argument for both. If you're taking the full cycle of eligibility timeline of, you will have this player at quarterback for the remainder of their collegiate eligibility. Well, then, that means I get maximum of 16 games of Carson Beck or 2, if not 3, years of DJ Lagway. When you put that into it, I mean, come on, like that's not. Let's be real. But yeah, for this year, I think that there's a reasonable case to be made for both. And yeah, I mean, one of those players will end up being better than the other in performance this year. I reasonably think it could be either. My recruiting brain leans a little bit towards number 2 in Alachua County because I did see what he did in high school and everything, and I'm not going to be one to sit here and lie to y'all. But yeah, I think there's a reasonable argument on both sides for that. When you're looking at a 1-year sample, if you're looking at for the remaining duration of eligibility, the youth of the sophomore versus the 5th-year senior like takes over.
Got a few super chats to hit here. We've got Paolo, Screwmaker break. I need consistency and progress.
Consistency, I agree. I hear you. Consistency and progress then is 10-2, but 7-1 in the conference and making it to Charlotte. That is consistent number of wins, progress in the ACC record, and progress from not making it to Charlotte to making it to Charlotte. And I don't necessarily, I want to go 12-0, duh. But to your point, to fit that consistency of double-digit wins and progress in which, where the wins came, that's where I would be.
Then we've got Falconer coming back with this one. Check out the new show with the student hosts.
Okay.
And then we've got Paolo coming back. I would take over 8 to 9 wins a year for the next 10 years, sprinkled with a couple of 11+ win seasons than the roller coaster from 2005 to 21.
Miami Hurricanes record by year. Let's see.
Sorry to rip on Paolo's comment there, but of course he would, because 2005 to 21 was 7, 8, 5, 7.
No, it was 9 and 05.
Yeah,
but
I'm not literally
right
hitting the years, but I'm just.
There are a lot of 6s and 7s.
Yeah.
From 5 to 14, there are 2 9s in there, but everything else is a 6 or a 7. So 8, 6 or 7 win seasons and 2 9s, like, yeah, okay. Now, it's been a little bit better from there. There's been 3 7s, a 6, and then obviously the 5 and 7. But, in 16, you had a 9 and then a 10, and then it fell off. Then you had an 8, and then it fell off. And that last year you had a 10. So, like, it's basically consistent 8 or 9 is taking a step forward from the last 20 years because, I'm not doing all of the math, but like I just told you, like what the, records were from then. I still think I would like more. And I think that we're in a position to push for more. And, 8 or 9 with a couple. So basically, Paula, what you're saying is you want Mark Richt's tenure from Georgia. That's what you're saying. Right?
I think
lots of 9s, a couple of 10, some 10s and everything, but really pushing towards championships was few and far between. It was a lot of years where there were 9s and okay, maybe not 8s, but 9s and 10s. Georgia.
I think his is pretty strong. I got it right here.
It's very strong. It's very strong.
But I think it's like, I know that he finished in the top 10 more times, more than half of his years at Georgia.
Mark Richt. First year 8, 13, 11, 10, 10, 9, 11, 10, 8, 6, 10, 12, 8, 10, 10, 10, or 9, and then he left for the bowl game.
Yeah.
Like, So slightly, okay, there was more 10. So it's basically 9s and 10s instead of 8s and 9s. But wasn't really no championships in there, like, which was the issue. So, which is why, he didn't coach there anymore. And they went to go get Kirby Smart because they said, top 10 recruiting classes and 9.5 win average or 10 win even average ain't good enough. But I get it from there has to be a step forward because, like I said, there have been a lot of 6s and 7s over the last 20 years for Miami as opposed to 8s and 9s. But I don't think I hear you with your comment, Paulo. I don't think in practice the 8-win seasons or 9 wins even on a consistent basis, I think that you would get tired of that. I think that there would be a measure of Mark Richt at Georgia or Lloyd Carr at Michigan where, it's 9-3 is great, but why do we keep losing those other two? Why isn't it 11 every year? Why isn't it, why are we losing to our rivals all the time? Like, why are we, because those things then become the focus, right?
Sure.
Okay,
Oh, yeah.
we're beating, and again, I remember this with Lloyd Carr at Michigan. You're beating Northwestern. You're beating Minnesota. You're getting, the Little Brown Jug every year. You're beating Wisconsin most times, but you're losing to those people from Columbus. You're not getting, you're not winning championships anymore because Michigan hadn't won one since '97. And not only are you losing to a rival, you're finding a way to lose another game. So maybe you're losing to a Michigan State, maybe you're losing to a Penn State, and then all of a sudden it's like, well, leaders and best and everything, but like we went 9-3, and there are a lot of teams that fired their coach because they went 4-8. Cool. What that got to do with me hating the fact and having to wear the fact that we didn't lost to who we lost to every year and not taking advantage of having, who was it? Chad Henne, Mike Hart, and Jake Long back for senior year for the express purpose of going to the national championship game, and which they all said at the time, go look it up, and getting their doors blown off by Oregon. And this is before Oregon was really Oregon, but that was the game that made Oregon at Michigan's expense. And then you go through and have a pretty good season, but then you've lost that. You figure this out. Like that. I mean, you play to win the game. And I know that winning more games would feel good, but like I really think that like after a couple 8 or 9 win seasons, it really becomes less about the 8 or the 9 and more about the 3 or the 4
Absolutely.
that you lost.
Absolutely.
Because even with the 10-win season, what are we talking about from last year?
Yeah.
Georgia Tech, Syracuse. Like that's where it goes. So, I mean, I hear you. I just having lived it, I mean, with Miami and with Michigan, which y'all know I'm from there, and that was the team of my youth and my fandom. I'm telling you, you think that that's what you would want. And I disagree.
Yeah, I'll come at this with 2 other comments, and then I'm good to go. I'll come at it from the Mark Richt defense one more time. Put it this way. Miami, I think we looked at this recently. The last time Miami finished in the top 10 in the country in the final AP poll was either 04 or 05. So that was roughly 20 years ago. Mark Richt finished in the top 10 8 times in 15 years.
No, and I hear you, but my point is,
yes,
even with
that,
right,
yeah,
even with 5, 5, 5, 5, 5, he spoiled the Georgia people, and then the focus at the end, which is why they ran him off, was cool. 5 is good. Why it's not 1, Mark?
Yeah,
I mean Mark Richt, not Mark Rogers. You know what I mean? But like
why do we always
want to win?
Yes.
Why is our ceiling like, yeah, we're in the top 5 and everything, but we're losing. We're not at the top of the pack.
Yes. For a fan base here that's living on a 60% winning percentage for the last 20 years, it sounds good that you would love to have a 7 next to your name at the end of the year, or a 4 or a 9, or to live in the top 10. But yeah, once you do that, You know, and I'll throw Urban Meyer out there. He lost 9 games in 7 years at Ohio State. Those aren't even regular season yet. Those are all games.
Hold on, yeah.
But what becomes the focus is, man, if he would have won that one and that one, then you're like your string of national titles, and people are upset because they're like, we were that close to like total domination. Yeah, that becomes exactly.
Yeah, exactly. The focus does get flipped.
Well, we do appreciate you all being here, folks, and make it on back next week.
Falconer TRX, how much NIL to get Patrick Mahomes? All the S's in Falconer's questions, if you're listening to the audio, have been money signs all day long, which is just chef's kiss. A lot. It would take a lot to get him.
I'm going to bring one stat with me next week. I'm going to go through the last 5 years of Miami results against the point spread, and we are going to see what was the overall record on the field versus the point spread, because as evidenced by last year, the team was never an underdog last year in 12 games.
Hello. I see George was asking what I've been talking about. If you didn't understand it, then maybe go back and re-listen to it at 3/4 speed or half speed or something. But yeah, appreciate everyone who's here in the chat. Saw a lot of great comments in the chat. I know I went off on a couple of different things and didn't get to address those things, but seeing a lot of different things that you guys brought up, and thank you for bringing them up here. But another place that you can bring them up for free, stateofview.com. We have a bunch of great stuff up there. Summer scheming is halfway through, where we look at the scheme. We first did a Miami Hurricanes self-scout, and then are walking through the schedule, looking at the X's and O's of teams that we will be playing. We are doing position previews. We're doing game preview, early previews, all of that and much more. So please come on over and fan with us. Stateofview.com, open 24/7, 365. And yeah, man, we will see you guys here next week. Thank you so much for your time. Take care.